The bell above the diner door jingled softly, the kind of innocent sound that usually meant a hungry traveler or a regular coming in for coffee. But that afternoon, under the bright wash of daylight streaming through the wide windows, it sounded like a warning. 3 men walked in with the swagger of people who had never been told no. Their boots echoed against the black and white tiles, their laughter too loud for the small family-owned diner that had been standing on Maple Street for over 30 years. At the counter near the window sat a broad-shouldered man in a simple green shirt, his posture straight even while eating his late lunch. At his feet, a German shepherd lay calmly, ears twitching at every unfamiliar sound. Behind the counter, 22-year-old Maris Calder wiped her hands nervously on her apron. This diner was her father's pride, built from nothing after her mother passed away. It was their second chance at life, at stability, at healing. And now it felt like it was shrinking under the weight of those 3 men. Before we continue, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and standing up for what's right, take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to And Stories. Stories like this remind us that courage can appear in the quietest corners of the world. The thugs didn't come for food. That was clear almost immediately. They slid into a booth but didn't even glance at the menu. Their eyes followed Maris as she moved from table to table, refilling coffee cups and delivering plates of pancakes and burgers to the lunch crowd. The diner was half full, mostly retirees and workers on break. No one wanted trouble. No one wanted to meet the eyes of men who thrived on intimidation. Maris approached their booth with a forced smile, her heart pounding so hard she was sure they could see it in her chest. She had dealt with difficult customers before, but something about these men felt different. There was a coldness in their expressions, a hunger not for food but for control. They started with crude jokes, then louder comments about her appearance, then suggestions that made her cheeks burn with humiliation. When she turned away, one of them grabbed her wrist. The room went still. Forks paused mid-air. Conversations died. Sunlight poured in through the blinds as if nothing was wrong, but the air felt suffocating. Maris tried to pull her hand back, her voice shaking as she asked him to let go. He laughed. The other 2 stood up, crowding her space, cutting off her path back to the kitchen. Her father, Leonard Calder, was in the back office going through invoices. He hadn't seen what was happening yet. At the counter, the man in green slowly set down his fork. His name was Ronan Vale, though no one in the diner knew it. He had returned to town quietly after years away, hoping for a few days of peace before heading back to base. He wore no insignia that announced who he was. He didn't need to. His bearing spoke for him. His dog, Atlas, lifted his head, amber eyes locked on the men surrounding Maris. Ronan had learned long ago that violence was not the first answer. He had also learned that silence in the face of injustice was its own kind of surrender. Maris's wrist was squeezed tighter. She winced, her free hand pushing weakly against the chest of the man closest to her. The diner owner's daughter had grown up wiping tables and pouring coffee, not fighting grown men twice her size. Fear crawled up her spine, but beneath it was anger. This was her home, her father's dream. She would not let it be stained by their cruelty. Atlas rose without a sound. His posture shifted from relaxed companion to focused guardian. Ronan stood up slowly, deliberately, as if every movement had been measured in advance. He walked toward the booth with calm steps, not rushing, not shouting. The sunlight caught the faint scars on his forearms, souvenirs from battles fought far from Maple Street. He placed himself between Maris and the men, his voice steady but firm as he asked them to let her go. There was no shouting, no theatrics. Just authority, the kind that didn't need to prove itself. The men laughed at first. One shoved Ronan lightly, testing him. The shove didn't move him an inch. Atlas stepped forward, a low growl rumbling from his chest. It wasn't loud, but it carried a promise. The nearest thug glanced down at the dog and hesitated. Ronan repeated himself, this time with a weight that pressed against the walls. He didn't threaten. He simply stated that this was a family establishment, and they were leaving. Something in his eyes made it clear he wasn't making a suggestion. One of the men swung at him, more out of wounded pride than strategy. Ronan moved with startling speed. In one fluid motion, he deflected the punch and pinned the attacker's arm, guiding him face first onto the booth seat without unnecessary force. The second lunged, but Atlas barked sharply, positioning himself between Ronan and the third man, teeth bared but controlled. The diner erupted into chaos for a brief, electric moment. A chair scraped, someone gasped, but within seconds, it was over. Ronan had subdued one man and disarmed the others of their bravado without throwing a single reckless blow. His movements were precise, disciplined, like someone who had spent years mastering control. Leonard burst from the back office, panic etched across his weathered face. He saw his daughter trembling, saw the men backing away, saw the stranger standing tall beside her with a watchful dog at his side. Police sirens wailed faintly in the distance, likely called by a shaken customer. The thugs spat empty threats as they retreated, stumbling toward the door, their earlier arrogance replaced with embarrassment and anger. They would think twice before stepping into Calder's diner again. When the door closed behind them, silence settled like dust after a storm. Maris's knees buckled, and Ronan caught her before she hit the floor. She was shaking, the adrenaline draining from her body all at once. Leonard wrapped his arms around his daughter, whispering that she was safe now. Ronan stepped back, giving them space. He knelt beside Atlas, running a hand along the dog's back in quiet praise. Only then did Leonard notice the small patch on Ronan's sleeve, partially hidden but unmistakable to anyone who knew. A Navy SEAL. Word spread quickly through the diner. The quiet man at the counter wasn't just any traveler. He was someone who had faced dangers far greater than 3 street bullies. Yet he had stepped in not because of training alone, but because of principle. Maris looked at him with tear-filled eyes. Gratitude mixed with disbelief. She had always thought heroes belonged in movies or on battlefields overseas. She hadn't expected one to be sitting at their counter eating scrambled eggs. Ronan didn't stay for praise. He insisted he had only done what anyone should have done. But everyone in that diner knew that wasn't true. Many had watched in fear, frozen by uncertainty. He had moved. In the days that followed, something shifted in the community. Customers came not just for coffee but to check on Maris. Flowers arrived. A local reporter wrote a piece about the attempted harassment and the stranger who intervened. But Ronan declined interviews. He asked only that the focus remain on supporting small businesses and protecting one another. Maris struggled with nightmares at first. The memory of being grabbed lingered in her mind. She felt angry at herself for feeling afraid, ashamed that she had needed help. Ronan returned to the diner one morning before he was scheduled to leave town. He sat at the same counter seat, Atlas by his side, and spoke quietly with her about strength. He told her that courage wasn't the absence of fear. It was standing tall despite it. He suggested self-defense classes, not because she was weak, but because everyone deserved tools to protect themselves. He reminded her that asking for help didn't diminish her strength. Inspired, Maris enrolled in a local martial arts class. At first she felt clumsy, unsure. But each week, her confidence grew. Leonard watched with pride as his daughter transformed fear into determination. The diner, once a place that had felt vulnerable, became a symbol of resilience. Months later, the same men tried to stir trouble outside another business in town. This time, witnesses stepped forward immediately. The community had changed. Silence was no longer the default. The example Ronan set had rippled outward. On a bright summer afternoon, nearly a year after the incident, Ronan returned unexpectedly. He walked into the diner to find it bustling with laughter and conversation. A framed photo hung near the register. Maris, Leonard, Ronan, and Atlas standing together. Beneath it, a small plaque read, "Courage lives here." Maris was different now, stronger in posture, steadier in gaze. When she saw Ronan, her smile was radiant, not fragile. She thanked him again, but this time there was no tremble in her voice. She had found her own strength. Ronan looked around at the packed booths, at neighbors chatting freely, at a young waitress confidently serving tables. He realized that the real victory hadn't been in subduing 3 bullies. It had been in awakening a community. As he prepared to leave once more, Atlas paused at the doorway, glancing back as if committing the scene to memory. The bell jingled again, but this time it sounded hopeful. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that one act of courage can change countless lives, please like, share, and comment to let us know. Your engagement helps stories like this reach people who might need a reminder that they are not alone. And before this story ends, we have a special request. Comment the word, courage, below if you believe standing up for others still matters in today's world. The sun continued to shine on Maple Street long after Ronan and Atlas disappeared down the road. Inside Calder's diner, laughter echoed against the walls. Maris poured coffee with steady hands, her father greeting customers with renewed pride. The memory of that frightening day no longer defined them. Instead, it had become the foundation of something stronger. Because sometimes, heroes don't shout. Sometimes they sit quietly at a counter, waiting for the moment when their voice is needed. And when they finally speak up, the world changes, not with noise, but with courage.